And I want it for everybody. I really, really do. I want everyone to feel as good as I feel. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to You, Yourself, and Why, a new podcast project that I am just getting off the ground. And I'm really, really excited about. I'm excited to have you guys here with me. I'm excited to share, which I've never really done before. I've kind of been, I share, but I've tried my best to be a minimalist with sharing. But I've learned, and through my life coach, Erica, she's taught me that sharing is a contribution. I've had a lot of wonderful, wonderful gifts in 2019, which is basically when my journey started in self-discovery. And I don't want to waste any more time with not sharing it back to the world because I've been given so much, so it's time to start giving back is my motivation behind doing this. So how I started on this journey is where I really want to kick this episode off. I want to begin with a backstory of who I am, like how I grew up, and then how I got introduced in a little bit more detail, how I got introduced to my life coach, Erica, which really springboarded me into this journey in 2019. Some of the main lessons I've learned, and then, just a couple brief tips on how you guys could get started. This is like such a daunting task. That's ridiculous to think, waking up in the morning and being like, I want to change my life forever today. And today's the day. But that can happen. That really can. And it happens in small increments. So we'll get into that. So anyway, so how I got started on this journey. So the backstory for me is I was raised in Massachusetts on the South Shore, in between Boston and Cape Cod is basically what I tell people. And I was adopted in 1989 by two incredible people. I hit the jackpot. I couldn't have asked for better people in my life as parents. It's funny because I had my initial situation that I was born into, and then God, my creator, the universe, gave me a second chance to live the life that I'm living now, and it's just so serendipitous. It's crazy. So my parents had always wanted to have children, were not able to, and decided that they wanted to adopt. So they adopted a little girl in 1985, my older sister Kelly, and decided that they also wanted a little boy. So they actually waited. I think they began the search process for a son before I was even born, which is kind of interesting as far as how long it takes the adoption process. So I had a very nice childhood growing up. My parents just showered me with love and support. And, I was always very jovial and outgoing, and they just supported me in everything that I wanted to do. And me and my sister both lived very, very wonderful childhood growing up. So I was always a good student. I was always artistic. My parents supported me leaning into my artistic nature, and I was an art student in high school. I actually had to transfer high schools when I was midway through because my high school wasn't supporting arts. So in an effort to make up for that, my parents supported me going to a private high school close by, and I was able to take AP art and transfer those credits into college. I went to Syracuse University. I actually got into the art school for communications design because I wanted to transfer my fine art skills into some kind of livelihood so that I could make money off of it. And I ended up switching into the communications school at Syracuse after my first year because they had like a stellar reputation, and got a graphic design degree through the communication school Newhouse at Syracuse. I had a great education there. I learned so much in the class, probably only exceeded by what I learned outside of the classroom. It was the quintessential college experience. It was Greek life, lots of parties, lots of socializing, lots of organizations. Just met so many cool people. It's a big, big school. There's people from all over the world go there. While I was there, I was realizing that, New York City was the place to be, especially in communications, advertising, photography, creative art. Like New York was it. And Syracuse is very well connected to New York City. I did move to Boston for one summer after college, and that just wasn't for me. I really didn't like Boston. It's kind of where I grew up, so it's a nice town, I'll say. It's a nice place. So it's a very, very nice place to live. Not for me. I just kind of had my eyes on New York from the beginning. So I lived in Back Bay, worked at a small healthcare advertising agency in the north end of Boston. And then the day that internship ended, I was packed up and ready to go down to New York. And I literally moved there the day my internship in Boston ended. I drove down to Astoria, Queens, and lived there. So New York was everything that I wanted it to be. It was just nightlife and diversity and vibrance and energy and just everything. I had wanted to always intern in New York, but I really couldn't afford to do one of those stupid unpaid internships at like a big advertising agency that they were always throwing at us students that were already mounting in debt from tuition. So to be in New York was just like so amazing. It was such an incredible feeling. I was just like, yes, I'm here. The sound of the woman on the train who says, next up, 49th Street, was just music to my ears. I was so happy to be there. It was a dream come true for me. So, well, I started as a production assistant for a graphics company in Flatiron. And that was great. It was my kind of stepping stone into living in New York because I couldn't show up with no job. But it was more of a task oriented. It wasn't super creative. It wasn't creative at all, actually. I don't even know why I'm saying super. It wasn't creative at all. It was basically blue collar. So I did that for 6 months, almost to the day. So then I moved to a very non-creative work environment. I was the only person that had a Mac in the office, and I was in charge of all the marketing, so soup to nuts, everything. And it was a really good experience. I learned a lot, and there was a lot of opportunity to just try a bunch of stuff. Literally throw you in the middle of the ocean and see if you sink or swim kind of environment. It came with its challenges, but also its rewards. I had a really close relationship with the CEO. Yeah, I was able to buy an apartment in Jersey. So I moved to Jersey City in the budding market of downtown near Grove Street. And that was fantastic for me. I got in on the skin of my teeth and was able to build myself some net worth doing that. So I got into the real estate market. Luckily, I turned that around in like 5 years, and I was able to move back into New York City after 5 years in Jersey. So I guess maybe the culmination of things as far as my journey in this year is what I'm referring to as my journey. Kind of began when the job that I was at, and it was the same place that I was at for 7 years. So this is my second actual job in New York. I was very uninspired. I had hit a ceiling. My expectations for what I wanted out of the experience of working at this organization were far exceeding what was expected of me. I outgrew the place. I lived stagnant in that way for a long time. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to stay. It's comfortable. I have a cushy lifestyle here, and I'm just going to stay here. And that was my justification for staying in a place that I was pretty miserable at. I wanted a vacation. I wanted to relax in the summer and not really think about it. So yeah, I was complacent. I was doing that thing that honestly so many people do. I know it sounds weird coming out of my mouth, like just admitting it, but I know so many people are doing the same thing where they're stuck at a job that doesn't really inspire them. It doesn't fulfill them, but it's comfortable. It's good. It has benefits. I got to pay my bills, and that's the reason that people stay at places. It got to the point where the environment honestly, it wasn't a good fit. It had to end. I had already been working with another organization that worked with my company at the time, a much larger company, a manufacturer, and I was kind of being shared between the two. So I was already like halfway out the door. I left my company that I had been at for 7 years, moved over to this new company, and it all happened within a day. It was very unexpected, and it kind of was just like the storm that happened. And I'll tell you a reference to a thought leader. The author and speaker, Mastin Kipp, I just read his book called Claim Your Power, and he talks about what's called as divine storms, which is basically shit storms in your life. We've all been in this chaos. We're like, how did we get here? How did this happen? I didn't expect this. What the F is going on? Everything is going wrong. My life is falling apart. Like, I'm going to be in shambles and I'm going to die alone. And that is what happened with the job transition. It was at the brink of when I was looking to sell my apartment in New Jersey and move to New York. So it was just like this chaos. I was in a divine storm, as Mastin would call it. He also has this other quote: "The world has shaken you to awaken you." I was literally being shaken out of my comfortable nest that I was perched in for 7 years, feeling so comfy. I was pushed out of the nest. I was shaken and awakened. I closed on the apartment, and that was chaos also, because then I had to move in, and then it was a fixer-upper and I had to renovate it, and that was a whole process for like a year. But I did it. And I guess the journey for me started at the point when this divine storm that I was in, when I changed jobs, when I moved into this new apartment, had it renovated, I was like, I'm going to be happy once all this is done with. I remember thinking that for like a year. Once I'm settled in the job and feel comfortable, and once I get my apartment renovated and I move in, I am going to be totally happy. To some degree, it was everything that I wanted it to be. But how I started on this journey was when I came to the realization that when you want something in the future, a mirage of happiness, when you are chasing this supposed final destination of happiness, that is a recipe for disappointment and letdown. Because when you reached that pillar or pinpoint that you've had your eye on for so long, and then you realize that once you got there, you have it, it feels great, but there's still something missing. What is going on? Albert Einstein has a definition for insanity, and that's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I had realized that in my life, I have lived for the fruit of tomorrow and thought that if I just got this one thing, if I just got this promotion, if I just got this new job, if I got this new apartment, I would be happy. And I had gotten it. I'd gotten it all. Yeah, I was just like, I'm still not happy. I was filling my days with distractions. I don't have to go into an office. I tuck and roll out of bed every morning, and I go to my computer in my living room and I just start working. So there was a lot of temptation for me at the time where I was like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out. Weeknights are my weekends now. It's not like I have to deal with people during the day and look presentable or whatever. I can literally work in my underwear every day. So I started caving into these comforts of my new lifestyle, finding distractions disguised as hopes of fulfillment. A hard lesson when I started to realize that this wasn't making me happy. I was not fulfilled by the things that I was doing in my life. And I was like, what is missing? What's missing from my life? There's something not right. I have what I wanted for so long, I worked for, and yet I'm still not happy. Am I ever going to be happy? Am I allowed to be happy? Is anyone else happy? Am I the only one? Are we all just faking it? It was tough. I was not really sure what to do. I didn't have the tools or the resources. I wasn't waking up every day and loving the day ahead of me. I've always been a very stressed out person. I've been really hard on myself. I've been like an overachiever. I don't know if any of these character traits relate to you guys, but that's kind of how I've been. And it's been great because it's afforded me a lot of success in my life. But there are ways to have those things, but keep them in check and make room in your life for more meaningful, bountiful perspectives. I was at my gym, CrossFit, the Black Box, and I was in the men's bathroom. There was a sign for a coach that I've known for years. She was running a free session of her programs. And the ad said, feeling foggy? Do this, blah, 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 blah. Feeling fatigued? Blah, 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 blah. Having trouble sleeping? Blah, 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 blah. Answering all these symptoms that people would be having that were reading this sign, and I was one of them. These apply to me. I had been staying up really late at night, going out, binge watching TV, going on the internet for God knows how long, just trying to distract myself into happiness, running through life, trying to find meaning, but having no idea where to look or what to do. So I had an initial consultation with her. Everything's just sounded so wonderful. I knew she had been doing this program for a while because I've known, her name is Erica Cellini, and I've known her for quite some years now. I initiated it. I wanted to do this program. I was like, yes, let's do this. So we got started in November of last year. It's a 6-month program. She does consults with me every 2 weeks. We go over, it's a customizable package. And she's going to explain this. So in the coming episodes, maybe the next episode or the episode after this, I'm going to have her come on the show and talk to you guys about how her program works. And believe me, it does. And we'll get into that with her when she comes on the show. But based on the needs and the wants of the individual, she will tailor the direction. So for me, I've never really had a difficulty with fitness. Other people might struggle more with fitness. So that's what she'll do with them. But for me, we didn't even really have a whole lot to do with fitness. But I did have all these emotional issues going on where I wasn't feeling fulfilled and finding happiness in and of itself. So that's kind of where our journey started. And I'm going to tell you, I was dragging my feet. I was the one that wanted to do this, and yet I was the one dragging my feet about it. And she has all these different practices that she gets you started on, and then you grow into it more and more. And, this might have been specific for me, and it's different for other people. But for me, it was little action steps that I was dragging my feet on, and I couldn't find meaning in it. I was just like, this is a pain in the butt. I don't want to do this. I guess I wasn't really that bad. She says that I wasn't that bad, and that I did pick up things quickly. But yeah, looking back on it, I've always been really hard on myself. So I'm looking back on it and thinking I was such a pain in the ass. But there's a lot of lifestyle shifts. It is not easy work. You have to look at yourself. So that's what she did. She started with Steve, you have to look at yourself. You need to change your habits, change your ways. She didn't force me to do it. She's more about intentional living. So yes, there was the requirement that I had to detox my diet, which included alcohol, for X amount of periods of time. And I'll get into that more, how I've kept that going. And I've kept that going because I've wanted to, not because anybody forced me. Nobody in life forces you to do things. This has to be something that you want to do. She's not going to force you, and no one is. This is something that you, in and of yourself, have to want for yourself to improve your quality of life, to better your perspectives on the world around you, and to show up in the world a better person for the people that matter to you most. So this is something that you have to do. And it shifted for me. It definitely shifted for me. She had me change my whole diet. It was such a pain in the ass. I'm thinking about it now, and I was such a bitch about it. She had me take out a lot of things out of my diet. So I had to remove inflammatory foods, grains, processed refined sugars, legumes, dairy, alcohol, any processed food. Anything that sits on a shelf and doesn't go bad, that's not a good sign, first of all, because it's filled with preservatives and processed chemicals that allow it to live as long as a human being. So she had me remove all that stuff, and it was difficult, for sure. I never watched what I ate before. I've always been fit. I ate whatever I wanted. I didn't even think about it for my whole life. And it was all about building healthy habits and building a lifestyle that made sense. And it didn't make sense in the beginning, but it does once you experience it. A lot of this stuff, you don't know what you don't know. And when you experience the changes in yourself from all of these interconnected facets of lifestyle that you don't think have anything to do with one another, and then all of a sudden you're realizing, when I remove sugar, that removes the high and removes the low. And the metabolic impact of processed foods, and especially sugar. Sugar is the devil. my changes in my mood. I don't have as much stress, and these are all interconnected. So it could also have to do with, I don't drink anymore, so I don't have the anxiety of a hangover looming every day or every other day. Not every day. Not every day, every other day. It was tough. It was a huge lifestyle change for me. All of a sudden I had to look at all the ingredients when I was shopping. I remember just bitching and moaning to her about how I don't want to have to look at the ingredients. It takes so long. It's such a pain in the butt. It's hard enough grocery shopping, and let alone, it seemed impossible to me. I'll never get this. I'll never figure it out. I will never get used to it. I felt like I was facing this gigantic 100-foot wall and I was told to climb over it. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I just complained. This was for a while that I felt that way. I just couldn't really get over it. I'm not really selling this right now very well at this point, but I will tell you that there's a shift. There's an absolute shift in your mind. And at some point, and I'll get into this more, specific moments of clarity, what we call ego deaths, stepping into new arenas, all of these things, I'll get into specifics, they are life-changing and they happen. If you allow them to happen and if you start this process, they will happen. Even I was dragging my feet and I was resisting. I was totally resisting this. And even though I was resisting this, in my mind and in my heart, I knew I wanted this for myself, and that was enough. And these tremendous shifts in my perspective really got the ball rolling. It was like I had greased the wheel and we were rolling. And it was so impactful. The changes that occurred are just, I'm going to try to describe them, but there's going to be another episode because I'm going to get into the detail about them, but it's so crazy. It's so crazy. I'm like a totally different person, and it happened because I was willing to. I was starting with the support of a coach, holding myself accountable, and things really started to happen for me. And I'll have Erica introduce who she is and her journey and how she got into it. And I'll go into more depth about her and my rapport and what she's done for me. But that was just like a background into who I am, how I got started on this journey, a little teaser into some real wonderful breakthroughs that have happened because of working with her and because of working on myself. I mean, I really started going in January. In January was when it really started rolling. It's a bummer that I waited, because I started in November and then I was resisting for 2 months. And then when I had these moments of clarity, then all of a sudden it was like, this is happening. And I want it for everybody. I really, really do. I want everyone to feel as good as I feel. And by sharing things, that's going to help. I was up in Calgary for a work trip. This is just a side story. I have a coworker there that I was working with, just like kind of side by side. So I work remote, but there's a whole team, my whole marketing team who I love is up there. So one morning, one of my coworkers was trying to loosely plan a happy hour with me to celebrate my going away or whatever, when I was going to head back to New York from being in Calgary for 2 weeks. And I asked her who should come. And she was like, I don't know. You figure it out. Something to that effect. And it was early morning on a random Wednesday or something like that. So I was just like, oh, okay. I guess she's busy or doesn't, can't really think about that right now. So I didn't really think much of it, but I probably shouldn't bug her about that anymore. Later that afternoon, I was back at my desk. She turned around and she was like, Steve, I need to apologize for how I spoke to you this morning. It wasn't right. I was super stressed out about this project that I'm working on, and it's not okay. And I just want to apologize for speaking to you the way that I did. I was kind of surprised, and I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest. I was just like, oh, she's a little cranky. That happens. Honestly, that moment where she was open with me, it connected us instantly. And I've known her for a couple of years now. I so appreciated her vulnerability in that moment so later that week, we ended up getting together, and it was a big group. We were at this bar called Greta's. It's like an arcade bar in downtown Calgary. And we were in a big group, but her and I were sitting close to one another. And she and I were just talking, and she kind of got into like what was really stressing her out. And she was like, I've had like a really overwhelming workload, and it's been really just getting to me. And I don't know, we just started getting into, have you ever been in like one of those deep conversations in a big group, and you kind of get lost in your conversation with one person in a large group? That was one of those moments. Her and I were just getting into the weeds of life and life's struggles and the stress that we all go through. And I felt this obligation to share with her. I need to tell her parts of my journey. And it was one of the best conversations that I had while I was up there. It really, really was. It was just, we were so connected, and we were just there, present with each other in this crowded arcade bar. A bunch of other people sitting around us that were talking about God knows what, looking in each other's eyes and talking and connecting. And it was just so wonderful. She was moved by my stories that I was sharing. I didn't even think my stuff was that interesting, but she's moved by it. At one point she said, "I feel you. I feel that." Here we have two people who have known each other for a very short time, remotely also, and we are feeling one another. And it's because someone opened the door and the other person walked through. And it's just, there's something so powerful about when people connect because they want to, and because they're willing and they're ready to receive people and to give. Is just, there's nothing better. And I have had so many more of those types of interactions in this year alone because of what I've been leaning into and how I've been opening up to who I am and meeting myself. And it's just so wonderful. I have a bond with her to the point where I'm talking about it now, and it was recently, but I'll talk about it forever. It was just, it really jump started me into like, sharing is a good thing. I need to share more, because when I shared, I added quality to her life experience. I brought something to her as a gift that she received. And it's making me emotional right now because there's nothing better. There really is nothing better than that. And she was ready for it. And she felt it. And she felt me and everything that I've been going through. And we moved forward together because of that. What is better than that? There's nothing better than that. I just felt so fulfilled in being able to help somebody that I cared about, somebody who through this interaction I cared deeply for 10 times more than I had before it had happened. And I love her for that experience. I know she loved me for that experience, and there's nothing better than that. So sharing is good. Sharing with the world and with the people that you care about. It will grow your relationships. It will make them deeper. It will make them mean more than you ever thought possible. Just by sharing, just by being you, just by being authentic and being vulnerable and living your truth. And sharing it with people. I've never been much of a sharer about these types of personal things, but it's a contribution to the world that you're giving back everything that you've received. And that's the meaning. That is the meaning. That is it. That is life. That is leaving the world a better place than when you got there. So I just love that experience that I had with her. It meant so much to me, obviously. And that can happen on the regular. It's such a great gift. I'm so happy that happened.
I've learned a lot over this experience, and looking at it as that 100-foot wall is very daunting, which some of you may already be halfway up or already over and looking back telling me to hurry up. Or some people might be looking ahead and there's a wall and they're like, impossible. It's not. You just have to do it brick by brick, as Will Smith would say. A couple things that you guys can really get started super small, and maybe you can or maybe you can't at this point, but hiring a coach makes so much of a difference. A cheerleader behind you that wants to see you succeed, that is there for you to hold you accountable, to uplift you, to up-level you, to bring the mirror up to your face. I mean, there's just so much value in that. I don't really know the going rate for coaches. I just know who I work with now, and it's just made all the difference. It really has. Someone in your corner. I can't even say enough about that. So maybe if you don't have the financial means to hire a coach, then maybe you could buddy up and do this with a friend, hold yourself accountable. Each of you go towards a common goal, and you can share and meet and talk about these things, root each other on. I think it's definitely an investment that you need to seriously consider. It's funny because we spend so much money on so many things and don't even think about it. Okay, but this is actually something that could seriously change your life and add value to it and make meaning out of it. Okay, is it more important than that, $50 Uber or that $100 that you're going to spend at the bar on a Friday night? Why don't you give up 10 Friday nights at the bar and put that towards saving for a life coach for 6 months? That's one thing to think about. And other things like little daily practices, simple things. So I have a very kind of an exhaustive list that I start with right now. In the mornings and in the evenings, I finish the list, but a gratitude list. So let's start small in the beginning. If you wake up every morning and write down on a sheet of paper, I actually type it. I guess it doesn't really matter. I think Erica said that I was the only person who ever typed his gratitude list, but typing works for me so that I can email it to her, because I do that to hold myself accountable. But you could just write it in a notebook. I'm sure you have one lying around also. Just get a little notebook, and every morning when you wake up, the first thing you do, don't check your phone. Turn the light on so you can see, and before you check your phone, just write 3 things that you're grateful for in life. It could be anything. This habit, for a while, I didn't understand it. I thought it was a pain in the ass. I was like, I don't freaking know. I'm grateful for like oxygen. I'm grateful for whatever. And then I kind of felt like some of them got redundant every day. They can't be redundant. You have to think. There's so many things that we should be grateful for. Your heartbeat, your new lampshade, anything. A person that was nice and held the door open for you, or something stupid. But you like find gratitude in little tiny things. And the meaning behind this is that it shifts the way that you see the world. Instead of waking up and being like, oh, I have to go to work today. Oh, I gotta go to a meeting at night later. I have to go to this stupid dinner. This weekend's gonna be so stressful. Instead of like waking up with that mentality, you start thinking about like the sun pouring into my window in my living room. What a gift. How beautiful is that? I have the sun to warm me and give me life every single day and give life to all the people that matter to me. Hello? What? That is an incredible thing to be grateful for. And then you can't ever repeat that. So you can only use that on day 1. You can't use that on day 2. You gotta find something else. This will shift your perception. It really will. It'll make things so much better for you, the way you see the world. I can't even put into words how much it's made a difference in the way that I look at the world and how I see myself in the world. It's just totally changed everything for me. Everything. But start small. Just 3 things. Super easy. Once a day. I mean, you can take 5 minutes and come up with a list. It doesn't take that long. It's about making the time. You have the time. People have more time than they ever lead one another to believe. So we have the time. You got to make the time. 3 things, gratitude list in the morning. Boom, done. 5-minute meditation daily. Meditating is something that I'm new getting into. For a while, it was like, I can't focus. I have too many things I'm worried about. Meditation isn't about being perfect. It's a practice. 5 minutes. Everyone has 5 minutes to sit
in a comfortable space. All you got to do, focus on your breathing. That's it. You just focus on your breathing and you let go of the thoughts that are lingering. Just practice it. Living in the moment. That's what meditation is all about, is being present. It's such a great reset for me. It really relaxes me now. I was on a video shoot this week in Texas. I travel a lot for work, so I was in Texas this week shooting a video, and it was not going the way that I had wanted to. So that's another thing, is expectations. Tony Robbins says, change your expectations to appreciation. Living in a world of expectations is being ready to be disappointed. But I was like, I need to meditate because this video shoot is not going that well. This thing that I used to begrudge having to do is now something that I'm actually looking to do as a form of relaxation. It's a tool now. It's actually a resource that I have in my wheelhouse to better my experience. So habits are formed. They take work, but they can be formed. So 5-minute meditation, I think, is super easy. Everyone can do it. Honestly, I mean, I've dabbled in the Headspace app, Calm app. I haven't really tried Calm because they both require subscriptions. And I would say, I mean, I don't even pay for either of them. So I just YouTube and find meditation. And depending on, you can Google meditation, positive thinking, meditation, sleep, meditation, gratitude, meditation. I've just started getting into religious meditations where they will read a psalm from the Bible or something's more spiritual, because I'm leaning into my spirituality more. Any kind of meditation for what you're looking to achieve for that day, you can find it on YouTube. You can find them for all different lengths of time, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, hours. But for right now, I would say a 5-minute guided meditation. Make sure it's guided, because that's when the person talks to you and guides you through it. So that's because we're just getting started. I would say do a guided meditation. A couple other things. Journaling. Grab that same notebook that you're doing your gratitude list and take 5 minutes, set a timer, and just write for 5 minutes. Anything that's on your mind. It doesn't even matter. Erica calls it word dumping. I mostly do it before bed, because if I get my thoughts out on paper, then they exit my head and then I'm not lingering in my thoughts at night. So it kind of helps me fall asleep quicker. That is a really wonderful practice. I hated it in the beginning. I was kicking and screaming doing it because I just didn't see the value in it, but it is super, super helpful. I do it almost every night now. It's therapeutic for me. It's a habit. Like I said, just build the habit. I love it. If you just write, if you just go ahead and write, you can learn things about yourself, things that you didn't know, maybe subconsciously you were thinking. It really helps you just regurgitate what's on your mind, stuff that's lingering. So, in 5 minutes, that's it. Set a timer, 5 minutes. Everybody has 5 minutes in the morning to meditate, 5 minutes in the night to journal, not even 5 minutes to do a gratitude list in the morning. That's a total of 13 minutes. I would just do it. Make the time. Come on, we have the time. Why don't you set a time limit on your Instagram? Maybe you don't watch 2 hours of TV before bed. We all have the time. We just have to make it, and we have to carve it out for ourselves, and we have to prioritize. Book recommendation, because I'm getting super into reading, and this is going to be a short list at this point, but the first book that I would recommend is called It Starts with Food. It Starts with Food. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's by Dallas Hartwig and Melissa Hartwig. They are the founders of the Whole30 Eating Challenge. It's an easy read. It's super segmented. This isn't really necessarily to do Whole30 or take on the challenge. If you don't know, Whole30 is basically a reset button for your diet. So it's removing all inflammatory foods, milk proteins, dairy, legumes, grains, alcohol, processed refined sugars, seed oils, a lot of stuff it's very common. It's difficult. So what it is you do this 30-day challenge where you remove all those things from your diet. There is going to be a drastic change in how you're feeling, but after maintaining this strict regimen, there's all sorts of metabolic benefits to removing inflammatory foods from your diet. So there have been so many testimonials of people with chronic pain like arthritis, ADHD, acne, obesity, high blood pressure, chronic heart disease, all these metabolic symptoms that people have really carved into their lifestyle. These are lifestyle related diseases that they saw drastic improvement in all of these aspects of their health just by removing things. That's why the book is called It Starts with Food. Trying to medicate the problem instead of fixing it at its root. And it starts with what's on your plate. This book I would highly recommend. Even if you don't do the challenge, it is such a wonderful source of knowledge and perspective on the things that we daily put into our bodies. We live in this world where we think that we can control so many things, and we're delusional. You can't control the government to any extent beyond your own personal vote. You can't control the weather. You can't control climate change. One of the only things in our personal individual lives that we can actually control is what we put into our bodies, and it starts with food. That's the name of the book, and I highly recommend it just because I couldn't put it down. It's me. This book was like written for me, and it's written for everybody. So you don't necessarily have to do a Whole30 challenge, but I highly recommend you educate yourself on why it starts with food, how food impacts us from a hormonal standpoint, from a gut microbiome standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. Like, food is emotion. We tie emotion heavily to what we eat. So this is just I can't say enough great things about this book. It will change your relationship with food. The nail in the coffin for the death of so many of my dietary pain points. Okay, so that was episode 2. That's my backstory. That's how I got started on this journey. It's been a wonderful journey. I can't wait to see what's next. I can't wait to see and hopefully find a way to interact with all of you guys about how your journeys are going. I look forward to speaking with you soon. Breathe with meaning. Make it meaningful. So here's my new microphone setup, sort of. I'm still waiting on a couple other things. I'm thinking that will be the last episode that you have to bear through with that sound quality, so I appreciate your patience. I am still building out the website. It's a lot of work. This is all a lot of work, but it's worth it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions on topics that you'd like to hear, you can reach out to me at info@youyourselfandwhy.com. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to include show notes. Hopefully by the time anyone hears this, the website will be up and running, but I'll be including show notes with links to everything that I mentioned within the episode. I'd like to know what you guys think so far, what I can do better. Criticisms are welcome. Just take everything day by day, you guys. There's a lot of opportunity to feel like a failure, but we don't want to approach any kind of self-growth or self-discovery with the thought that we need to be perfect. That isn't the goal. The goal is to just be better, to try every day, to stay on track, to utilize the tools that we have at our disposal, to live in alignment with who we want to be. And don't be too hard on yourselves. Show yourself a little compassion and gratitude.